Welcome to the Elliott Confidential podcast. I'm Christopher Elliott. I'm here with my son, Aren. Aren, how are you?
Good.
And we are in the mountains, the foothills of the Andes in Ecuador today at a place called the Mashpi Lodge. We just got here, so we don't really have a lot to say about it, but we do have plenty to say about what we've done in the last week because we've been in the Galapagos. Lots going on.
Yep. It's been quite the tour.
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
So you're probably wondering why we sound a little bit different today. And the reason why is that we're sick.
Yeah, we've gotten sick in at least 4 different ways over the past, 7 days.
Let us count the ways. First of all, everyone in the boat got sick. We were on the Santa Cruz II, the route Santa Cruz II, great ship, but there was something going around and a lot of people got sick. They were keeping that doctor on board busy. And it's kind of like a congestion, cold type thing. I've got it. You had it first. Ugh. But what else?
Seasickness.
That's right. Yep.
And then there's also altitude sickness.
Because we went from the Galapagos up to Quito, which is the second highest capital in the world.
Yep. So seasickness, common cold. Oh, then there's a stomach bug.
Yeah, it's a little GI issue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
And now there's a lung thing going around.
Okay, so you can probably guess what our question of the week is going to be, which is, what is the sickest that you've ever been when you've traveled? Tell us about the most ill that you've gotten. This isn't the worst that I've ever had it, because as you'll recall, Aren, a year ago I was in the hospital after suffering, this terrible fall from on a ski resort and ending up getting helicoptered to a hospital. That was probably the worst. Technically, I wasn't sick. I was just very injured, and I was in a hospital.
Yeah.
That was the worst for me.
Well, I think that the worst for me was personally when we were in Cape Town, South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how allergic I was to eggplant until I had a salad full of eggplant, came back to my hotel, and, fevered for the next 2 days. I had to be taken to a hospital, and they put me in an IV drip just to hydrate me and to make sure that my fever didn't get too out of control. But that was hell.
That was bad. Yeah.
That was the sickest I had ever been in my life.
Goes with the territory when you're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wouldn't trade this for the world. I could be at home petting my cat and enjoying a nice view of the Red Rocks. And while that sounds really nice, I also love the fact that I can get out and travel and spend some time with you and explore the world. So it's okay. I don't mind being sick. Tomorrow I'll feel better.
Hopefully.
So our question of the week, but we will also, at the end of this podcast, we will read your comments from last week. We've got some really great comments, so I'm looking forward to that. So last week, we were in the Galapagos, and we were on a expedition ship called the Santa Cruz II. It's a 100-passenger vessel that was built specifically for cruising around the Galapagos, and it was really fascinating. I mean, a fascinating place to visit, and they had a very full schedule. Aren, what did you think of cruising on the Santa Cruz II?
Well, the Santa Cruz II was definitely a different boat than you might be used to. Riveting runs a lot of different boats. Mm-hmm. So they have really huge boats like the ones that go down to Antarctica and have a maximum of 500 passengers.
Yeah, those are a bit bigger.
Then you have some of the smaller boats that are going through coastal Norway and also in the Galapagos. And so this one, it was small.
Well, what did you like about it?
I liked the fact that they had, they had good rooms compared to some of I remember it was the MS Polarlus. MS Polarlus.
Oh yeah, the one that went up to Norway. The rooms were fairly small on that one.
They had little coffin rooms, and I thought that was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But this one had decent sized rooms that were very, very acceptable for tourism.
Yep. I thought the crew was very friendly as well. They really went out of their way to make us feel at home on the ship. And when we missed excursions, which we did, unfortunately, we had some things to file. You were still working on your classwork, and I had stories to do. So when we missed excursions, they would like ask us, "Why did you miss your excursion? Is everything okay?" And I would say, "Yeah, it's fine, you know." But they were very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed very knowledgeable too about the islands, and seemed to really enjoy what they were doing. Talked a lot about the Galapagos, and I liked that as well. So I felt like we learned a lot about the islands by just being on the ship and interacting with the crew. And so just to give you an idea of what our days would be like is sometimes our days would start quite early with an early breakfast, and then they would go out for a landing on one of the islands, and it would either be a wet landing or a dry landing. You get off you go on a dinghy, a little Zodiac, and then they would hike around and show you the island. And you had to always be around a guide. That was the rule. They're some of the strictest rules that I've ever come across. But one of them is that a guide must be with you at all times. And if you get too close to the wildlife, or the wildlife gets too close to you, they will say, "Hey, 2 meters, you got to get away from that. That seal is coming toward you. You've got to move away from the seal." Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you'd get back to the ship, and then they would split into smaller groups. Some people would go snorkeling. Some people would do glass bottom boat. Then there would be lunch, and then afterwards there would be an afternoon activity too, and then there would be lectures in the evening. We didn't make a lot of those lectures because we usually got up really early in the morning to get work done. So we kind of missed out on that part, but we still got plenty of information.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular activity that you thought was fun or noteworthy, Aren?
I think that the best part about an expedition cruise to the Galapagos is that you really get to actually make the landings and do small hikes.
Yeah.
And you get to take photos while you're doing that. A lot of the landings, unfortunately, are wet landings, so you do need to bring water shoes or enough equipment so that you can dry yourself off once you're on land. But I think that was really the coolest part. There are other features, like, for example, snorkeling, and then boating, kayaking. They even had paddleboarding as an option, although the waves were really not suited for that. And I think that was probably the highlight for me, was the hiking. Because, the sea kayaking, we don't really like sea kayaking that much. Snorkeling...
And it got a little bit wavy, too.
Yeah, snorkeling, I can imagine, if you really like snorkeling, it's a good way of getting up close to, and personal, with the sea life. But the hiking was just really nice because it gave you that freedom to go wherever you want, and also you couldn't really go wherever you wanted, but to really see the island and take photos with your camera.
We were talking about when you should go, and we're right in the middle of, we're at the end of dry season, the beginning of rainy season. And so rainy season is nice because everything is very lush, but right now everything is very dry. So some of the pictures, and I'll post those on the blog, are you can see the trees they have no leaves on them at all. Mm-hmm. So I would say if you like lush, go during the rainy season, which is just starting now, and you will see like lots of green. Right now, though, not so green. And also, it's a weird year because they're having El Nino, and that screws the weather up really badly.
Yeah.
But we saw, just to do a little break here, we saw a lot of really cool things. We saw lots of different types of lizards and iguanas, and we saw flamingos, sea lions, we saw sea turtles, land turtles.
Flamingos? We already said that.
Yeah. The flamingos were so beautiful. You can say it twice. It's okay.
Yeah.
And we saw hawk. We saw penguins, which is, it was... And the neat thing about the Galapagos is that the wildlife there is not afraid of you. So they will come right up to you. Yeah. They are not... The iguanas are not afraid of you. The sea lions are not afraid of you. They will just come right up to you. And you have to move out of their way because there's that 2 meter rule. Anyway, I thought that was really cool, and I'm glad that I did it. So let's just say you had a buddy from the States who was going to the Galapagos, and they said, "Hey, Aren, I heard that you were there last week. What did you think of it?" What would you tell them that they need to do before they go?
Before you get to the Galapagos, make sure you're not bringing any seeds or anything that
Yes,
might be
okay.
confiscated.
Right.
Remember to downsize, because having a lot of stuff is not going to be helpful for you. And traveling with lots of stuff is difficult because...
yeah, we saw people struggling with their large bags.
Yes.
It was not good. Don't take too much stuff with you,
Yeah,
for sure.
don't take too much stuff, because it's an island. You know, you can't...
Yeah, they'll
there's
take
a
care of
limited
you on the
space.
ship. They've got food there. It's not like you're going to starve.
Yeah, but you really realize how much stuff you do have
Yes.
when you're sitting on a panga, and you realize that you have brought all of these things with you that you're not going to use, and you have to transport them to a tiny island or a boat in this case, where the things are just going to sit there.
No, it's true. Downsizing, that's very, very good advice. You know, if someone asked me about the Galapagos and said, you're just there, what did you think of it? I would say bring a pair of water shoes that you can use in the water for the wet landings and that you can go hiking in. That's really important because there are a lot of water landings. And if there is a certain snack that you like to eat, take some of that with you too, because the food options on smaller vessels are a little bit limited. Some people brought their own coffee along because they wanted to have their own coffee. This is not, I would not call this a luxury cruise. There are luxury cruise lines that are going to places like the Galapagos, like Celebrity, but it really is a different experience if you're living in a suite, and there are people who probably don't even get off the ship at that point. They just sit there and watch from their private suite. They watch everything. So I don't know, but certainly, if you have specific dietary issues, you should talk to the cruise line before you go too. For example, Aren, you have an allergy. You can't eat eggplant, and we didn't really fully communicate. I mean, I think we did, but we did it kind of late, and I think that it's really important to let them know in advance if you have any kind of special dietary needs, like you're on a plant-based diet, for example, like hypothetically. So definitely that is true. And don't expect the weather to always be beautiful. We ran into a lot of inclement weather. We had no storms really, but we had lots of waves and overcast. So the weather is pretty unpredictable.
Yes, and in Puerto Ayora, the waves can be pretty huge. So this is not, if you're scared of big waves, you're probably going to have to face that fear at some point.
And those ships don't have stabilizers either, so you feel every wave.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so next week we're going to talk about this lodge that we're in, and it is an amazing place. It's built in the middle of nowhere. I mean, if you look at Mashpi Lodge on a map, there aren't even roads. There's just a dirt road going out here. But they built this place here for conservation, or so they say. It's also a very beautiful lodge with just a lot of great like fine dining, and it's pretty high end. And anyway, we'll talk about that next week, but we're also going to be leaving and going down to Santiago, Chile. And I'm really looking forward to visiting there. We're going to be there for a little while, so we'll have a chance to unpack and really explore Chile while we're there.
Yep.
And that's going to be really great. Last week's question was, when you leave home, what do you miss the most? We had a lot of responses.
Yes. So Sheila says she misses her bed. That's definitely something that I remember missing when we lived in Orlando. We had these wonderful down comforters.
I miss the down comforters the most.
And we would always miss those down comforters.
Yes. We still have those somewhere in a box in Spokane.
Too bad, yeah. Judith says she misses her dog and her bidet.
A lot of places have bidets now, so...
in Europe, maybe.
Yeah, go to Europe, yes.
In Southeast Asia.
Traveling with a dog is hard, though. We have to do a pet travel podcast at some point. Mm-hmm. Sam says, when I travel internationally, I don't miss any American food. Because, we talked in our podcast about American food that we like. But back in the States, I miss foods that I've eaten in other countries. However, I do miss availability of ice drinks and lack of ice machines in hotels. Nancy says, on a hot day, I miss a glass of good cold iced tea. I don't want canned iced tea or tea made from powdered mix. Yep, in the States, we do have very good iced tea.
Tara says spaghetti bolognese.
The family recipe.
The smell of my 100-year-old house, my cooling gel pillow, and my morning coffee ritual with a square of salted dark chocolate on the side.
Seriously? Tara, I love it. I should start doing that. Chocolate on the side. I love the morning coffee ritual. We could do an entire podcast on morning coffee rituals. But we don't have time for it right now. Phil, safe drinking water. Safe drinking water. Okay. You had me at safe drinking water, Phil. There are places that we've been where you cannot drink the water. Cyprus, we couldn't drink the water.
Yeah, it's true.
Indonesia, you couldn't drink the water.
Thailand.
Yeah, there's a lot of places out there where the water is not safe to drink. We had so many great comments from last week. We can't get to all of them, but you can read them all. And if we didn't read yours in the podcast, remember, you can still share your story with us about the sickest that you've ever gotten on a trip. And you can commiserate with us because Aaron and I are pretty sick right now. I've been trying to resist coughing while we were recording this. Well, that's it for the Elliott podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to try to get better, and we will have a full report from the Mashpi Lodge and Santiago, Chile in our next podcast. Talk to you then.